You either use the internet for fun or you use the internet to grow. You're here to grow. Welcome to TRS Clips. Why were you in Kerala?
So you've jumped a few months ahead. So I've spent the last 2.5 months in Kerala. I've taken a sabbatical from work to be able to do this. I was at an ashram that is maintained by Chinmaya Mission. I've been associated with the Chinmaya Mission many years. My spiritual journey, in one sense, 17 years ago, started with them. And they used to run this course to teach you how to become a Pandit for 6 months. They used to teach you all the pujas, all the vidhis in detail. Now, this has been an area of interest for me for pretty much my entire life.
Let's take a small pause. How many pujas are there?
As many as you want there to be. So I'll give you a basic idea. There are multiple manifestations of the divine that are worshipped in specific ways. Okay. Now, Adi Shankaracharya, who is one of the foundational pillars of Hinduism as we see it today, had proposed a path called Shan Mata, where there are 6 manifestations of the divine that are worshipped as access to the highest. Shiva, Vishnu, Devi, Ganapati, Kumara and Surya.
What is Kumara?
Kumara is Skanda.
Okay. Kartikeya.
Kartikeya, exactly. So 6. These are, and of course they have their own manifestations. So each of these deities have their own specific pujas. In addition to these pujas, you have Navagraha pujas that are undertaken for any auspicious activity, right? And that includes Rahu and Ketu, as we were talking about. In addition to that, you have what are known as havans or homas. Now, havans and homas are performed again in worship of these deities, and you also have yagyas, which sometimes are used interchangeably with havans and homas, but they are not. They are much more detailed. There's a very, very deep and rigorous process that goes into performing a yagya that takes multiple days, multiple people, which one person doing a homa can never achieve. Yeah. And
So, like a havan is a micro yagya.
in one respect, yes. Both involve fire and invocation of fire and offerings into the fire. But a yagya can take multiple days. A yagya requires the yajmans to be married. A homa doesn't require the yajmans to be married.
Yajman is
Yajmans are the people who
participating.
have sponsored it, for lack of a better phrase.
Okay.
Homa doesn't require for the yajmans to be married. Yagya requires for them to be married. Homa, you can take the agni from your diya. Or you can even, not that people do it that much, normally you just take it from your diya and light from there. Yagya, to produce agni, there's a very specific process and instrument that is required. You have to kindle that wood and create that flame. You cannot just take it from somewhere else. In a proper yagya, the entire yagyashala is burnt at the end of it. The entire yagyashala, the entire venue, which has bamboos and thatched roofs and everything, and it's huge. It's got multiple spaces. That whole thing is set alight. And people assume that this no longer happens in India because it's so detailed, but it does.
Where does it happen?
Is there, wherever there is very detailed tantra practice in particular, this type of yagya takes place. I know of one that took place in Kerala not too long ago. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to visit because I was in London. But my dream is to go once at least to experience that.
Speaking about tantra practice now, I think even the listeners are actually kind of educated on it because of all the Rajashi Nandi episodes. But basically, when someone does a normal mantra, you're getting some sort of spiritual progress. When you
Yes.
meditate using that mantra, you get deeper spiritual progress. And there are certain mantras which are even more powerful. So is it fair to say that a havan is a much larger bomb of progress, and then a yagna, how do you say it?
Yagya.
Yagya is an atom bomb of progress?
You can say that. And what I will say is these are processes that are worth experiencing rather than understanding it theoretically. Because then what the words that we used just now, they actually become an inner experience. The level of opening that takes place inside is very, very different. So, for example, I've been performing pujas for many years now, but I learned how to perform a havan recently. And I'll tell you, the experience of performing a havan is very different from the experience of performing a puja. Not that I'm saying it's more advanced, it's just the level of connect and the presence of the divine that is much, much more palpable in a havan than what you experience in a puja. Why? Because we invoke the deity in the fire. Now, the fire is not something that is visualized. The fire exists. The fire is producing a certain amount of heat. The fire is producing a certain amount of light. The fire is creating an immediate reaction in us because we are sitting next to it. We are also sweating. We achieve that luster of that sweat, and the light of the fire starts to reflect in our face. And inside, the energy of that fire catches root. And what takes place inside is very difficult to describe.
You're saying the same energy of the fire that causes all these external visual and feeling based changes reaches whatever's inside your mind and heart as well.
Yes.
And creates changes there. Almost like it's cooking up your soul in some way.
The ultimate truth in Hinduism is visualized as a flame, as light, as life-giving. And this isn't just me making it up. In the Kathopanishad it is said, Na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam, nema vidyuto bhanti kutoyam agnihi, tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam, tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. That I am not able to see the sun, the moon, the stars. None of these lights are visible to me until and unless I have touched that light within. And having touched that, I am able to see, experience, know everything. So, if in Hinduism the truth is a flame of knowledge, or knowledge is a flame, then that flame is burning right in front of us. And we get to experience it in the process of a havan.
Okay. Little tangential question.
Hanji.
A pujari who's performing these pujas and havans and yagnas regularly. Yagyas regularly.
Yeah.
What changes in that pujari's reality?
So firstly, you can say yagya, you can say yagnya also. Because it's Sanskrit, it's nya. So some say yagya, some say yagnya. I say yagya just because it's easier to pronounce in English. But in Sanskrit, if you were speaking in Hindi, I would say yagnya.
Yagnya.
What changes for the pujari? What changes for the pujari is, they can achieve the highest reality as a result of these processes if that is their goal. Sometimes we do the karma, we do these pujas, we do the havans purely to chal karna hai. You might do it as a means to an end. If I'm doing one for you and you are paying me, I'll be like, chalo, let's do it, and then I get paid and then I can do whatever I want to do with that money. Or it might be that I'm so familiar with it, I just do what needs to be done, get done with the process and move forward. But someone who is doing it properly, to achieve the right energetic outcome, one has to invest a certain amount of our energy into the process. And one cannot invest the energy without having a clear idea of why we are doing this. And that why needs to be aligned actually with the purpose of the puja. I cannot do this puja for, say for example, if someone's having a health problem and they ask me to do a puja for them. I cannot just say, I am getting money for this, that's why I'm doing it. No, for the puja to have an effect, I have to connect with solving the health problem for that person. It's not that I am going to solve the health problem, but I have to create the energetic preconditions. If I don't create that energetic condition and I take the payment and I just do the puja, then I am accruing bad karma. So anyone with a decent understanding of karma won't do that.
Okay. You can continue on your Pujari 101.
So Chinmay Mission used to do this course for 6 months it used to be. And they had only really done it twice to the best of my knowledge in the last sort of 15, 16 years. But the teacher is a true master of this. And for many years, I wanted to do it. And I used to keep looking at their website, their Instagram pages. When will they announce? Then finally, at the end of last year, I somehow managed to pull the contact details of someone in that ashram. And I got in touch with them and said, look, I live in London. I'm very interested in this subject. You don't look like you're having a course for some time. Can I just come and stay at the ashram? And I will serve in the ashram, but just please teach me. And that person said, oh, by the way, we are having a 2-month course. We're not going to do the 6-month version. We'll do it over 2 months.
Why did you want to do it?
So the why in me is a really difficult question to answer because it comes from a place that is not in the conscious mind. It's not a thought that, oh, I want to have this plan, then I'm going to do this. It's just an inner calling to do something. And actually, my connection through Hinduism is through puja. We have still Ganesh Puja at home every Ganesh Chaturthi. And I'm very blessed to be born in a family that has been performing this puja not in the decades, but in the centuries. It's been more than 100 years in Mumbai at least, and a long time before that, when our lineage was originally in Goa. So when I was 2 years old, this puja was happening at home, and I wanted to participate. I was watching it. And so obviously people held me back because, you can't let a 2-year-old in front of lights and lamps and all of that. So I was held back from this puja. And in the afternoon when everyone went to sleep, I decided now is my time to do my own puja. So I took the flowers, put it in the oil, took the water, offered it, took the chandan, just threw it everywhere. And when they woke up, I was just sat in there surrounded by flowers with chandan on my head and everything. Absolutely delighted in myself. And that's when my family realized, my parents realized that next year onwards, isko bhi puja ke liye bithana padega. So I was 3 years old when I started doing Ganesh Puja. And then it reached a point about more than six years ago or something that I started doing it on my own. But what had happened is I had this knowledge of Vedanta, of the scriptures that I had obtained starting about 16, 17 years ago. And then I had a separate understanding of puja and the process. And I had a certain inner experience from performing those pujas. But those two it was difficult to reconcile. I mean, I could have used my own understanding to do that. But it's different when you have an authorized master teaching you. This is the process. This is the meaning. This is the experience that it is meant to generate. This is the philosophical understanding that one should have when performing the puja.
Like what?
For example, in any puja, there are 3 or 4 stages of the puja. The first stage is Purvanga Puja. Then you have it's a preparatory stage. Then you have Avahanam, which is the invite of the deity to come, where there's a specific process that the pujari has to undergo, which involves their own chakra. I don't want to use the word awakening because that now means something very different on the internet, but utilization of energy through their chakras.
Wow.
To be able to invoke the deity in the vigraha, in the form that we see in front of us. That is the second stage. The third stage is the upachar. Upachar can be 5 panchopachar, can be 16 shodashopachar, or it could be even as many as we want. Upachars are offerings. So you offer the deity flowers, pushpamala, har, you offer them clothes, vastram, angavastram, you offer them water, you offer them chandan, and so on. So each of these offerings are done. And the final one is Uttar Puja, which is, normally when we have Aarti and Karpur Aarti and Pushpanjali and all of these things. And we thank the deity for coming. So those are the 4 broad phases of the puja. Now you asked me about the mood in which the puja is done. Now the mood is set in the Purvanga Puja itself. There is a part of the process called Atma Puja. Atma Puja tells us how the pujari, in what inner space the pujari is going to be when performing the puja.
And it's different for every puja?
No, it's the same. But I'm holding back on giving all the information because some of this has to be practiced to be understood. But I'll give it in brief. Your Atma Puja can also be of great depth. See, each of the stages of the puja can be done in huge amount of detail. You can do a puja and 30 minutes, you can do a puja in 3 hours, you can do a puja in 3 days also, if you want. So the Atma Puja step is similar. This can go into as much depth as you want. So there are very specific processes of meditation where you see the presence of the divinity in your heart. But ordinarily, if we are doing Atma Puja, there's a very beautiful mantra that is chanted. Deho devalayaf prokto, jivo deva sanatanaha, tyajed agnan nirmalyam, soham bhavena pujayet. Deha, body, devalaya prokto is a temple, devalaya. Who is the deity in the temple? Jiva, the individualized Jiva. Deva is Deva. When? Not now, not while doing the puja, not when they reach realization. Sanatana has always been divine. The inner space of the person performing the puja has always been divine. So therefore, how do they perform this puja? Tyajed agnyana nirmalyam. By releasing the waste product of agyan, which is ignorance. Soham bhavena pujayet. Soham, you have been doing this Soham meditation for many years. Soham is I am that. I am the supreme reality. With that bhava, I undertake the puja. So a seasoned practitioner will aim to undertake the puja as a process of connecting their current identity, which is, Om, Ranveer, whoever else, Pujari, banker turned Pujari. They want to connect that. They want to almost discard that identity and identify with the Supreme. Two very simple examples. One is when I'm doing a havan, I lose, even when I do a havan, I always explain what is going to happen at the start of the havan. And I tell everyone that this is the process. Some of what I've already shared, there's a Purvanga Puja and so on. I share some details about how we invoke the deity into the fire. And I say to them, I'm giving you this information now. As we go along, I may explain a little, but at one point, the Kriya will take over and I won't explain. And what happens in that process is that I lose track of the room. I lose track of everyone apart from the puja and the Agni. And one interesting thing happened recently when we did a havan for Maha Ashtami in Navratri. We did a Durga Maha Havan. I said to the people who were there that havan is very interesting because we get to experience the presence of the divine in the Agni. That when you offer Naivedya to a Vigraha, for example, the Vigraha consumes that. Vigraha is what we normally call a Murti. But Vigraha has its own meaning. Vishesh Graha means the home of the divine. A special home for the divine is created in that form so that the divine can reside there. And it's energized. So, when we do Vigraha Puja and offer Naivedya to it, food to it, the Vigraha is consuming that food in its pranic form. So we say, consume this food, look at this food, we draw its attention to the food, and then we offer it, each of the pranas, pranayasva, panayasva, vanasva. When we are doing havan, we are actually offering the food into the Agni, so the deity is directly consuming the food, not just its pranic element. And I said this, I was like, the presence of the deity can be seen. Sometimes when you look at the picture of the divine, you will see that form in the fire. And there was someone there who didn't believe me. And then we did the whole Kriya. They experienced what had to be experienced. And at the end of it, when there was someone who took pictures. Multiple people were there, they were all taking pictures. There was one picture in which clearly you could see Devi. In fact, it's there on my Instagram. There's Devi is there in a photo. And in the middle, there's the Havan Kund. And the last remnants of the fire are there. You can see clearly that the same form of Devi in the photo is the same form in the fire. with a khadga, with a sword, and sat on a lion and so on. So these experiences are there. And I'm sharing this because other people have also experienced it. So that is one thing that happens. Second thing, people say to me that when I'm performing a puja, especially when it goes into the more intense stages of it, like, later in the puja, my face becomes very stony, like it becomes almost expressionless. And someone asked me why. And this is a person who has watched me do puja for many years and someone who I consider close to me. And I had to share to them that our experience of who we are loosens. The presence of the deity takes over so much that actually we have to work extra hard to hold ourselves together. So when I do Ganesh Puja, for example, Ganesh Chaturthi, the day after, the day before, I do it with the idea of communing with Bhagwan in a way where Bhagwan comes, Bhagwan is served, everyone else who comes, they are served. But my communion is those 2 days, which powers the remaining 363 days to then come back for 2 more days of Ganesh Chaturthi.
The reason I'm asking you about all these things in so much depth is because not every listener who's listening to this is going to perform pujas with the intensity that you do.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that people can gain something for the pujas that they perform at home from this conversation.
Definitely.
At least from an emotional perspective or a intention perspective.
Yeah. The point of puja is not to transact with Bhagwan. People say, I'm doing this puja for this purpose. Fine, we can have an intention, we can have a sankalpa, we can aim to manifest it. But we're not transacting. That I will give you 100 coconuts, give me a house. People say, I'll give you 100 coconuts, give me a house. What is the value of a house? What is the value of 100 coconuts? And Bhagwan has provided everything. Doesn't need coconuts from us. Doesn't need sweets from us. Doesn't need gold from us even. What Bhagwan needs from us is bhava. Are you willing to give yourself through the puja? Are you able to recognize the presence of divinity and through that recognition offer? That is the purpose of puja. See, one need not do elaborate pujas. If one has the ability to sit for pujas, has the desire, has the love for it, is able to take that level of energy, please do it. But not everyone else can do it. So the basic puja is panchopachara. 5 upacharas, 5 offerings. Okay. But those 5 offerings, which are water, chandan, flowers, dhupa, and deepa, light. These 5 offerings have deep metaphysical truths in it. And when we offer, we are offering not just the object, but the meaning behind it. So the 5 offerings, panchopachar, represent pancha mahabhuta, the 5 elements. And we offer those 5 elements. And we recognize that those 5 elements have come from the divine and are merging back. So there's an independent divine presence from which 5 elements arise. This entire world comes. We offer those back and then the entire creation merges into that divine. So when we offer water, jalam, so 1 of the 5 elements. Earth is represented by gandham, by chandan, by sandalwood. So when we offer chandan, we say that we will work in such a way where hum ghis jayenge, we might get eroded, but we will spread our fragrance and the divinity and the greatness of the divine around us, that people will benefit. So that with that bhava, we offer chandan, which represents the earth. Pushpam, flowers, represent space, akash. How? Because they space is unmanifest for a period of time, becomes manifest, and then changes form again. In the same way, the flower is a bud for a period of time, becomes a flower, then gets pollinated and becomes a fruit. So that process with that bhava of saying something is there, it's not there tomorrow, it will come back the day after, with that entire cycle is sustained by the divine eye of flowers. Then you have dhupa. Dhupa represents the vayu. Vayu is the wind element.
Dhupa is like agarbatti.
Dhupa is agarbatti. Yeah, you get agarbatti. There's dhupa. Agarbatti, very interesting, is a type of, originally it was called agaru. is a type of wood that used to be burnt and used to get fragrance from it, that used to be cut into very small splinters. So it was then called agarubatti, and agarubatti now has become agarbatti. And a lot of agarbattis you get are made of chemicals and all that, but that's a separate discussion. Anyway, naturally fragrant things that occur in nature that are naturally fragrant when burnt, we offer to the divine. See, this represents Vayu. And the idea is, again, that we will live our lives in such a way that we may get rid of ourselves and our ego. It completely disappears into ash, but the process of doing that will benefit others. And finally, we have Agni, which we know as knowledge. So that Agni we take in the form of Aarti and show and use it to see the divine. And again, it's the same principle. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. Knowing with this knowledge, only I am able to see the divine. And so it's not just so that, but we offer it and nazar, that's an element of it. We energize it. That's an element of it. But it is also to truly see Bhagwan, we need knowledge. So this deep philosophy is embedded in the process of puja, and simply 5 offerings can help us live that.
Okay. This answers the age-old question that children ask their parents in India while we're performing pujas. Why are we doing this? And the parents usually say, "Chup karke kar." But this is the actual answer.
Yeah. And I used to have that with my parents as well. And for one time, I sort of resented these answers. I said, why aren't you telling, why don't you know? If you don't know, then you can't tell. Why? And I realized one thing.
There was no podcast back then.
Yes.
That's the actual
See,
truth.
what happened? Our grandparents' generation fought for the independence of Bharat.
Mm.
They had to do what they had to do to gain freedom for us. Our parents' generation fought to be independent in Bharat. They were focused on survival through this entire license Raj, and where every person that stood out was hammered back in. The nail that stands out should be hammered back in. That was the idea in their generation. They could not focus on anything but survival. We are the first generation of Bharatiyas in hundreds of years who have the opportunity not just to survive but to thrive.
Goosebumps. That's so true.
And our culture, our Sanatan Sanskriti, that is timeless. I won't even say thousands of years old. That is timeless. Gives us the means to thrive.
New clips released at the same time that a podcast releases. This is TRS Clips. Make sure you subscribe.